The storm had come out of nowhere. Torrential rain pounded the streets of Seattle, turning the sidewalks into rivers and the sky into a curtain of steel-gray fury. Inside the small, cozy cafe tucked into a corner of the city, Thomas Reed, a single father of 7-year-old Joshua, sat nervously at a table by the window, checking his watch for the third time. He had agreed to a blind date, a concept he had resisted for years, but his sister had insisted, promising that someone named Sarah might just change his world. He glanced out at the rain-soaked streets, feeling the weight of his exhaustion. Life as a single dad was relentless, and the thought of meeting someone new stirred a mix of hope and hesitation. Outside, the storm raged on, drumming against car roofs and blowing umbrellas inside out. Just as Thomas was about to text that he might leave, the cafe door burst open. Water poured from her like a waterfall, hair plastered to her face, clothes clinging to her frame, shoes soaked and dripping onto the polished wooden floor. Every eye in the cafe turned, and Thomas felt something stop in his chest. She was dripping, shivering, but there was something unmissable about her presence, a quiet, raw vulnerability mixed with undeniable courage. She stumbled toward him, cheeks flushed from the cold, and tried to smile apologetically as she muttered an incoherent excuse about the storm. The cafe heater hissed nearby, casting a warm glow, and for a moment the chaos of the rain outside seemed to fade into insignificance. Thomas, still frozen, saw more than just a drenched woman. He saw someone who had battled the storm to arrive here, someone who refused to let circumstances define her. His heart softened instantly, though he didn't know why. It was one of those rare cinematic moments when the world seems to pause and notice something profoundly human. If this story is already tugging at your heart, pause for a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, especially if you believe in the power of kindness and second chances. Thomas, who had always prided himself on being composed, suddenly realized he couldn't sit still. He leaped from his chair and guided her to the table, insisting she take off her wet coat and sit. Everyone else in the cafe watched, whispers and curious glances rippling through the room. He noticed her trembling hands and quickly fetched a warm towel. The storm outside had made her appearance dramatic, almost cinematic, but Thomas knew that beneath the soaked hair and the dripping coat was a person who had a story, a battle, a life that mattered. As she tried to calm herself, Thomas's eyes softened. He had spent years putting walls around his heart, afraid of loss, afraid of betrayal, afraid that introducing someone into his life might upset the delicate balance he maintained for his son. Being a single parent wasn't just a role, it was a responsibility that consumed him entirely. He had nights when he cried silently in the dark, missing the comfort of companionship, the simple presence of someone who understood. And now, here she was, an unexpected force that seemed to break through his carefully constructed barriers with nothing more than courage and vulnerability. Her name was indeed Sarah, and as they started talking, Thomas discovered a woman who had endured hardships of her own. She had lost someone she loved dearly, yet she showed up in the world with an open heart, even braving a storm just to meet someone she barely knew. Her voice, soft but steady, carried traces of resilience that mirrored his own struggles. In that cafe, over warm drinks and small talk, the rain outside became an extension of their shared human experience, the storms they had survived individually now forming an invisible bridge between them. The conversation flowed easily, as if the storm had washed away the awkwardness of a first date and left only sincerity. Thomas found himself laughing more than he had in months, feeling the heaviness of single parenthood lighten just a little. There was a moment when Joshua, his son, peeked through the door from a nearby play area, and Sarah's eyes lit up with warmth at the sight of him. She had a natural way with children, patient, kind, and unpretentious. Thomas felt a pang of relief. This wasn't just a date. It felt like the first day of a second chance. Then came a silence, the kind that stretches long enough for self-doubt to creep in. Thomas realized how rare this moment was. He had stood up so many people, figuratively speaking, in his life, friends, family, even himself. But he had never felt this surge of protection, of wanting to shield someone from pain, not for obligation, but for pure empathy. And yet, fear whispered in the back of his mind. What if he let his guard down? What if history repeated itself? But he looked at her, water still clinging stubbornly to her coat, hair damp and sticking to her forehead, eyes bright despite the storm. And he made a decision. He would not let fear dictate his heart this time. He reached across the table, offering his hand in an unspoken gesture of trust and connection, and Sarah, looking surprised but clearly touched, took it without hesitation. The cafe, once a backdrop for strangers' curiosity, became a haven for something rare and beautiful, two wounded hearts daring to hope again. Hours passed unnoticed. Outside, the storm slowly faded, leaving puddles that reflected the city lights like shards of glass. Inside, the warmth between them grew, punctuated by laughter, soft conversation, and the occasional comfortable silence. Thomas felt a sensation he hadn't allowed himself in years. He felt seen, not for his responsibilities or his exhaustion, but for his humanity. And in Sarah's presence, he sensed a kind of healing that had nothing to do with fixing someone, but everything to do with accepting them completely. Eventually, the cafe staff began to gently close up for the night, and Thomas and Sarah reluctantly rose, realizing the world outside had changed while they had been lost in each other's presence. As they stepped into the cool, post-storm air, Thomas noticed the streets shimmering under streetlights, puddles reflecting the promise of new beginnings. And in that moment, he realized that life's storms, literal or metaphorical, could no longer frighten him, because if someone could brave a tempest to be there, then anything was possible. Before we close, I have a small request. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment sharing your own moments of courage or second chances. It helps others feel they're not alone, and your words might just inspire someone else today. As they walked together into the night, dripping rain no longer mattered, and the fear of standing up to vulnerability seemed trivial compared to the gift of connection. Thomas knew life as a single dad would remain challenging, but he also knew he had discovered something worth cherishing, the courage to open his heart again. And Sarah, in all her soaked storm-fighting glory, had become a living reminder that love sometimes arrives when you least expect it, and always in the most dramatic, unforgettable way. If this story moved you even a little, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Let the world know that even in storms, literal or emotional, kindness, courage, and second chances can shine through, changing lives forever.